It's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon at this really great meeting. I don't want to take too much time so that we can make the best out of this panel of experts. I know all of them personally, and they do an excellent job. Sylvia is a role model in the academia and in the area of the field work with research and investment and entrepreneurship. She has been in the public administration. Juan Manuel, we always find him on the roads because he provides support to entrepreneurs throughout the country, and he will tell us about his projects. Let's jump into the panel. Each of you will have 15 minutes to present. After that, we will have a Q&A session. And I don't know who goes first, so I will introduce the first speaker, Juan Manuel Barrero. He is a chartered accountant. He graduated from Universidad Católica Argentina. He has a master in management of agribusiness and also a graduate degree in the same area granted by Buenos Aires University. He's also the president of the Argentine Union of Young Entrepreneurs. He's an entrepreneur himself. He's also a consultant at the Federal Ministry of Agri-Industry. So, let's give the floor to Mr. Campero.
Bueno, buenas tardes, ¿cómo andan?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Esteban. Just like I am standing here today, any of you might be here today. I'm just another entrepreneur. I'm not different from you. I've just walked along a path and I have developed some skills. And when I was invited to address you, I started thinking what I could tell you which I hadn't heard before. Many people say what your future should be as an entrepreneur, but actually to be an entrepreneur, you are not born an entrepreneur, you become an entrepreneur. And the more important key here is to be entangled, to be part of a network. So what do you mean to be entangled? Entangled in a positive way. You have to be a strong hub and you have to develop values wherever you are. When I was invited, I thought of sharing with you my entrepreneurial experience, why I try to challenge the structures, and I think there is a key tool you need here and a skill all entrepreneurs need: social capital. I'm Juan Manuel Barrero. I was born in Trenkelauken. I grew up in Trenkelauken. I lived in the U.S. I studied in Buenos Aires. I went to study abroad again. I came back to Buenos Aires and I kept on traveling. But my place is Trenkelauken. Trenkelauken is my identity. And your identity is where you see yourself reflected, where you can look at yourself and you realize you are there. Trenkelauken is my friends, my roots, my values. This is what enables me to achieve what I want to achieve. I am told that I am a typical accountant, and that's true. All the people in the farming world know that my life is not only balance sheets or sworn statements or tax reports. I try to meet people, to be with them. I am an entrepreneur and I don't have a startup right now. I failed many times. Right now I'm not part of any startup, but I still have many projects which are current, underway. I don't have one focus only, and I usually focus on different areas, different things. I move about, I put my heart and my soul in different areas, and that enables me to be happy. When people tell you you have to be an entrepreneur, that to be an entrepreneur you have to have focus, that doesn't work for me. You need vision. People tell me that I fly. I am not grounded on the earth. So as I fly, I need people that bring me down to earth. And always I'm moving from meeting to meeting, managing many things, but I learn many things along that path, that process. I always show my professional and my personal side. We both share the same values. We're just one person. You don't have somebody who is a professional or a human being. I put all of them together. My friends who are entrepreneurs who come from the farming area, from Tranquilauken, and I am in love with ideas because I believe in ideas and I put them into practice up to the very end. And very often, even when we realize they won't work, but I keep on trying and learning along the way. This is myself. I challenge the structures. But when 7 years ago I became an entrepreneur for the first time, I wasn't really certain of what I wanted to do. The only new, I think, is how I wanted to live and who I wanted to be with. And sometimes people ask me, what is your driver? What are you doing in this world? And for me, the most important thing is to create value wherever I am, to produce an impact and to be happy throughout the process. I will share with you some keys to achieve this. I believe there are 3 elements that have been very important for me to achieve this, to create an impact and be happy along the way. One of them, detecting the opportunity, learn from your mistakes and be able to get involved in several organizations. Finding the opportunity. When I started working in my father's accounting office, he had an accounting office in Tranquilauken, and he had worked at Ernst & Young, Dreyfus and Weisz, and I realized there was an opportunity to add value to farm management. Farmers were losing money. The money they earned in the farm, they would lose it in the accounting area. So some years ago we created a cycle of workshops where we invited the best leaders who would talk about the professional management techniques or approaches. And very often you may be trampled over by an elephant when you are looking for an opportunity. You may not see it, but you have to be ready to detect the opportunity. And there are 3 keys here to detect the opportunities, and these are soft skills. When we hire staff at our company, first of all, we look at their values. Number 2, at their attitudes or behaviors. And finally, their skills. Soft skills. When I hire a person, 3 months later after being hired, he may be doing something completely different. There are new ideas, new processes. Teams have to be taken apart and built again. So soft skills are key. And these are working as a team, accepting failure, creativity. And creativity helps us to add value. You may add value to all processes, all organizations. And digitalization. Digitalization also creates many opportunities. When I started working at my father's accounting office, they were not using emails. People would come to the office and would bring all their documents on paper. 3 years later, we received many, many mails, too many, and now we are thinking how to use a platform in the cloud to improve communication with our customers and staff. But from Tranquilauken, nowadays we are doing the accounting for companies in the US, and we have been able to hire a person working remotely from Piwe, another city. The person responsible for communication works in another city, full-time for us. So we challenge the structure. Now we have a person in communications for an accounting office. So digitalization is overwhelming, but it also brings about many opportunities. We are thinking about the future through digitalization. There is a project we have today. We want to create a global digital company to provide services from Tranquilauken to the world. And this is an opportunity created by digitalization. I said that the second tool that helped me to grow was to learn from your mistakes. Sometimes you win, sometimes you fail, but you have to learn from your mistakes. We young people must get involved to participate in the decision making. We don't need an institution where 3 people decide on the future of everybody. So I was very young when I started working in the Rotary Club for young people. And I realized that we, the young people, were not there just to feed people who were hungry. We, the young people, were prepared to change those people, to empower them, to teach them how to earn their living. Later on, I joined UNAJE, the Argentine Association of Young Entrepreneurs. I'm the president of that association nowadays. It's made up by young people aged 18 to 40, and it has 3 important features. That's why I got involved. UNAJE, this association, is made up by young people. Young people are not the future, they are any longer, they are the present. The new era, the 4th industrial revolution, is creating new opportunities. We, the young people, are changing scenarios today. Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook. Uber was created 4 years ago. Gina Tubaro is created orthopedic hands so that people who are missing an arm may recover it, so to say. We, the young people, are the opportunity, not the future. Besides, UNAJE is multi-sectorial. We mustn't think of ourselves just as an industry, as a sector, the farming sector. And for this, you need to be patient. You need to meet people who think in a different way and who have different interests, because that's okay. And finally, UNAJE also has an international arm. We represent young people internationally. We need to develop entrepreneurs who are competitive, who understand our role as a country, and we have to work here together, not only the farming people. We need to have entrepreneurs who are not just chasing in the zoo. They need to go outside. We don't need entrepreneurs who get money by working with the administration. We need to develop entrepreneurs who are competitive on a worldwide scenario. I'm also part of ASEA, the Argentine Association of Entrepreneurs. We think Argentina provides a scenario for entrepreneurs. Today, entrepreneurship is a government policy. I also developed Hatch because I thought we needed a long-term vision. I thought we need to work not only with entrepreneurs but also with people from the world of arts, from the social area. And for this you need a long-term view, because in the short-term view it's very difficult to get agreement and to share one vision. And finally, I'm also part of ASDE because my values must be reflected in all the decisions I make, and that's why I need to be consistent. I need strong values. We, the young people, have the opportunity as part of this 4th industrial revolution, which is changing the way we live, work, and relate to one another. We are able to bring about the changes the country needs, because through this 4th industrial revolution we will improve the income of people and improve their quality of life. And we, the young people, have this opportunity. I'm saying this because networks are increasingly important. Networks make decisions and validate decisions. Maybe you haven't heard about blockchain. Blockchain is changing the future of Internet. It's related to the way we create trust and value. Blockchain is a public database where no piece of data may be changed, but new blocks may be added. A blockchain is the ideal creation of trust. It's what the net needs, because everything is written down, is based on that database, and we may know what is happening. And sometimes the network may become a business case. Airbnb, Bitcoin, Uber are examples of this. So being entrepreneurs, well, I didn't meet all the requirements necessary to be an entrepreneur, focus, etc. But I realized that my social capital was the added value I could provide, because your network enables you to get the investors, the customers, people that will work with you, a partner. The network is everything. We need to create those networks.
Now, if I say that the network is this, it is your main work. I've been building my network for 7 years based on these principles, win-win. When I ask somebody for something, I have to be in his shoes and understand how will impact on him. I have to think in long-term relationships. I cannot trust or build trust with somebody immediately. You take baby steps until you reach to that trust situation, and we have to find these people in this network, not look for them only when we need something. We have to give something. We have to be in touch with them all the time, not only when we need something. Many farmers like you, how do you realize when people is interested in being in contact with you, seed suppliers, bankers? They are interested in you, but they do not build long-term relationships with you. You have to give before you ask for, because if you give in future, you will collect, you will harvest the results, because these ties based on patience and trust will bring results. It is important to be patient. So what I do believe is that strong relationships are required. The network is more and more important. And when the network is strong, the limit is the sky. Because this strong network allows things to happen, allows you to move forward. And I can tell you about many different cases that proves this theory. Now, how do I build my network? It is something that you do on a daily basis. Let me give you some examples. When I was 17, I went to the United States to study, and my father said, Juan, take this notebook so that you can stay in touch with people. I came back with a full 100-page notebook. Then you have to have fun. When you connect with somebody else's passions, you can find more ties. I run, but people can play golf or other things, or people can find common ground in art, in cinema. I build these dinner parties. We invite a chef, we invite somebody from the art world, just because we have fun doing that, and we have fun learning from these people. And then I cooperate instead of compete. We have to give. It means mentoring. It means giving, because what we have cannot be kept inside us. Now, what can we do to build a network? It's important that young farmers look outside farming, connect with other sectors, with other people from other provinces, other countries. We need strategic allies. The world requires food, and we need to develop strategic alliances based on networks. This requires time. I cannot become a friend with a Brazilian and the next day create a startup with him. No, we have to build trust. We have to share a common vision, build a collective construction. So we have to meet, to share experiences, to train together, travel together, build trust. When we have trust, we can build a common vision. After having agreed or something, we can create facts or events. So I can tell you that with a common vision, we can build something in the long term. But remember, it takes time. It is difficult, but you can do it. Thank you very much.
Le agradecemos a Juan Manuel.
Thank you, Juan Manuel, for your presentation. And now we will listen to Matthias Weisz. He's a graduate in political sciences from the University of Buenos Aires, manager of Uber Argentina. He worked in Poder Ciudadano, Ketchup, and other companies. This is the second presentation. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm going to change a little bit my presentation because I was listening to Juan Manuel and you said something that I felt connected to, and you mentioned Uber. I have always been very driving. I was born in Pihue in the province of Buenos Aires. You mentioned it. Of course, I had an exchange in the United States through the Rotary. And I always wanted to transform things. Luckily, my work allowed me to find myself with different experiences, with the possibility of building networks, of meeting a lot of people. And I came to work in Uber by chance. Life is about opportunities, but also opportunities that you bring to your life. So let me tell you about Uber. But I wanted to mention this because I believe companies are made by people. Companies are people. And when you are an entrepreneur, you do a lot for your company. There's a lot of the person in the company you create when you are an entrepreneur. So I'm going to tell you about Uber, which is a technology-based company that is changing mobility across the world by connecting people. When you connect people, you connect stories. So we are a technology platform. That is what we connect. Somebody who wants to drive with another person who wants to be driven. So this idea that started in 2009, a rainy evening in Paris, Travis struggling was trying to find a taxi to arrive to a technology conference. It was raining, so he couldn't get a taxi, and after some minutes he wondered, why, if you can use a smartphone to pay for his bills, to talk to his family miles away, he couldn't get a taxi. So that's the story. A very small idea that slowly started to transform the world. Uber is just a solution to get a car to drive you somewhere. So what's Uber? Uber is a technological platform that connects users because they need to be taken somewhere, and connects users with things. We not only transport people but also things. Who are the people who connect through Uber? People like you, a neighbor, a retired person, a student, somebody that has 2 extra hours in his day, somebody who is not doing as much money as he needs and uses that time and that possibility to drive another person somewhere. Uber drivers currently in Argentina, 11% are women, 15% are over 50 years old, 70% of them never used a car as a means of making money. And most of them work less than 20 hours a week. That is, Uber is not their main job, but it's just an opportunity to get extra money. Why do they choose Uber? Because they find this platform to be an economic opportunity. They have a skill, driving, they have the car, so they can be an Uber. It is very flexible because technology allows you to go in and out, drive as many hours as you have on a certain day. It's very flexible. Sometimes the weekend, sometimes the weekdays, sometimes when they go to Buenos Aires, where they are for 2 weeks a month, and also because it's a very efficient platform. Because technology connects one drive with another drive, so the time a car is used is above 70%, so less than 30% of the time you allocate to work in Uber, it's idle time. That is flexibility and efficiency. It was born, and as I told you, it was to get a car by just clicking on a button. You know who is going to drive you, you know the rating of this person, you know how much the drive will cost you, and then we can rate the service. So there is a competitive advantage of that technology offers us. You can rate the person that provides the service, and this is where technology empowers users and drivers, because you can say what the experience was like. This story that started on a rainy evening has got another vision. We have 12 billion cars in the world. Most of us stop at one corner and we see every car with one person in it. Cities were not built for so many cars, and the more cars we have, this made things more and more complex. There's yet another element, that 22% of emissions come from transportation means. When we use our cars, we're using the space and we are making an impact on the environment. And this is also relevant. 95% of the time cars are parked. This 95% of the time we are paying for insurance, we are paying taxes. So the world that has become one car, one person, made cities, force cities to create parking areas. So we are creating cities with more gray spaces than green spaces, where houses are forced to have garage to park the cars. What are the benefits? Something I have already mentioned. Technology allows us to reduce car density because people can share one car. Technology allows us to reduce the number of accidents because you always have one car available. If you went for a barbecue with your friends and you drank, you can call Uber and avoid driving while you are drunk. It doesn't matter whether you are at a disco, at a restaurant. We constantly measure peak hours, peak demand hours, because technology allows us to do it. And that peaks happen when discos close or restaurants close, because people decide to move around after they have drunk. And this also has a connection with public transport services, because public transport services do not take you door to door, but a door-to-door service like Uber is different. That's why people decide to take a train, to take the underground or something else, and then an Uber to get to their house. And all the drives are traceable, because we know where we are traveling to, who we are traveling with, and in a complex society, this gives ease of mind. Shared cars more people in one car, more people in one car, less empty spaces in the car. These pooling services implies the same number of people but less, not so many cars in the streets. I can connect with a neighbor who goes to an area near the area where I go at approximately the same time. And this is something that is informal. Here in Argentina and everywhere you have groups, WhatsApp groups.
Technology enables us to put all this together and make it foreseeable, traceable and reliable. This is what I was telling you about. This is how our model works. A car picks up a passenger two, and so on and so forth. This improves efficiency. Efficiency is important both for mobility, for the farming business. We need to be efficient regarding mobility. This means that the driver will always be busy with passengers on board and spending less time at home being idle, using his car to carry passengers. When we talk about efficiency, we also talk about changes in behaviors depending on availability. If there is a car if there will be a car available in less than 5 minutes, I will not use my car and I will use these Uber cars. We have an efficiency all over the world which ranges between 4 and 5 minutes. So when people think about using their private car to go somewhere, usually tend to use technology to find transportation and not using their private cars. Efficiency is also related to cost. The more efficiency, the lower the costs, the more competitive we may be. Where is Uber nowadays? Nowadays we are present in 630 cities worldwide in over 80 countries. The company was created in a city only 7 years ago in San Francisco with an idea, an entrepreneur who wanted to solve an issue he had faced. How to move about in a city where mobility is difficult, where public transportation is not good enough. This idea, developed on a rainy evening, is now present in 630 cities with different models, different identities. The technology provides versatility, so we may adjust to each reality. Today we have more than 10 million daily trips a day, more than 40 million passengers a day, and over 2 million active drivers. When Juan mentioned the network, I was thinking about this. These 2 million drivers, 40 million passengers are part of a network. They choose to join the network, they find a place to connect to other people. I mentioned networks. This means people. This is technology helping people. Users are human beings. I don't want to bore you, but I'd like to share some examples of the evolution of our company in different parts of the world. In the south of California, where we reached unserved areas where there was no transportation, public transportation, and we grew based on demand requirements. Uber technology grows pushed by demand, not only by supply. When we talk about demand, we talk about people who want to go somewhere. This is Paris, where we also grew year after year. We started with a few trips, and we reached several suburbs, generating an important income for people who wanted to drive. In blue we see the Uber trips, and in green these are the areas where there was no public transportation. Access to transportation also involves inclusion, democratizing society. It means giving new value or increasing the value of those areas. This is a very important image because we can see how we complement our services with public transportation. The white dots are the underground stations, and in the blue lines are the Uber trips. So this is people who use the underground or the train plus Uber to get to their jobs, to go back home, to spend less time on the streets and more time at home or with their friends, enjoying themselves. But as I don't want to give you the idea that Uber only works in large cities, I wanted to share this example with you. I'm very proud of this. This is in the city of Innisfail in Canada, a city with 36,000 inhabitants. There was no public transportation there. And after discussions with the mayor of the city, we started to think how we could provide a mobility solution for the 36,000 inhabitants of that town. So we reached an agreement so that all Uber trips would have a fixed rate, and so that the people from the city would drive other people from the same city. So this created a source of income from inhabitants, and we also solved a problem, the lack of public transportation in a small town. This is relevant because very often we are considered an urban phenomenon, and that's not the case. And I also told you how we are growing to different areas and districts, and thus we are helping to create better connections among people. We have been present in Argentina for 15 months. We arrived to Argentina in April 2016, and there was a very important and interesting phenomenon. There were huge expectations about conquering Buenos Aires, because Buenos Aires was the biggest city in the world where Uber was not available. 10 days after we arrived, we had a huge impact. There were 45,000 people who wanted to become our drivers. Over 700,000 people downloaded the app to become users, passengers of our service. And over 50,000 Argentines had already used Uber abroad. Here we see the connection and the links between underground trips and Uber trips. Now, 15 months later, there are over 140,000 people who want to become drivers in their own cities, Córdoba, Santa Fe, wherever. We have interested drivers from almost all cities in Argentina, and we have 1.5 million people downloaded the app to see whether the service was available and was useful in their cities, or to use it in Buenos Aires. In Buenos Aires we have 15,000 drivers, 15,000 people or families who are earning extra income by working a few hours a week. And today we have over 100,000 users who use Uber on a daily basis. I wanted to share this with you because I think Uber has a story to share in Argentina. Argentina is a country where technology is quickly adopted, and we have expectations, great expectations about the growth of our company in Argentina. And this beginning, where there was great interest throughout the country, is what encourages us to keep on growing. Thank you. We thank Matthias Weisz for his presentation, and now I'd like to introduce the next speaker, Ms. Silvia Torres Carbonel. She's a chartered accountant. She graduated from Universidad Católica Argentina. She's a director of the Entrepreneurial Center of IADE, Business School of Australian University. She's a part-time professor at the Masters and Executive Programs, and she's a director of Endeavor Foundation, a non-profit organization which fosters entrepreneurial development in emerging countries. So we give the floor to Mrs. Silvia Carbonel. Good afternoon. Thank you very much to my colleagues, and thank you very much, Aapresid. First of all, for existing. Aapresid is an undertaking by itself. They have been organizing these meetings for 25 years, and they are an example of starting something, of creating value, creating something which didn't exist before. And this is Aapresid. So I would like to congratulate the founders, the people who work on this. There are 5,000 people here because they want to learn, to create networks, relationships, because they want to grow, because they want to become better. And I believe it's worthwhile celebrating this. I loved to be the third speaker after these two entrepreneurs, because I am an entrepreneur myself. Besides being the mother of several entrepreneurs, I've been working in this area for 20 years when nobody was talking about this in Argentina. This didn't mean there were no entrepreneurs. Argentina grew as a country by the work of immigrants, entrepreneurs who wanted to find opportunities with no resources. They were just hard-working people. Many of us are just the children of those entrepreneurs, but we were not aware of the role of entrepreneurship as a phenomenon that creates and that drives social and economic development. This has always been the case, but it's only It's only starting in the 60s and 70s in the world. The world began to see entrepreneurs as an economic tool and as somebody who would create wealth. Entrepreneurs would create destructive wealth on one hand because they destroy value, but they create additional value. So I wanted to share with you today my story. I've been working in this area for 20 years, promoting entrepreneurship, creating projects and processes where I assist entrepreneurs. I am an entrepreneur. I have invested in several startups. I have my own projects. I'm a professor at the university. I'm a mentor to entrepreneurs. I was part of the public administration last year. And all this helps me to have a wide opinion, a wide view of this. And I'd like to share with you some thoughts and ideas which will reflect many of the things that the previous speakers have mentioned. There are important things to mention when we talk about entrepreneurship and innovation. Number one, we should think how we develop an entrepreneurial brain. Number two is how technology really drives or increases the speed of entrepreneurial activity. And the third one is a bullet point which is very important for me, and I worked on this last year when I was in the public administration, is how do we turn innovation into a social good? Things are changing very quickly nowadays. Changes represent opportunities and threats. The future is uncertain, and on the other hand, so that we should be aware of the times we are living. In the past, there have been several turning points, important changes, but this is a very important turning point. It's not the same to have lived between 1610 and 1680 than having lived between 1960 and, 7 years later, until 2030. And those who are born today, I have several grandchildren who have just been born, and I cannot imagine really what their life will be like in the next 40 or 50 years. Look at this. I borrowed this slide from a scientist where we see the development of scientific knowledge. And nowadays, 80% of the researchers in the world are living and working today, creating knowledge. Look at the curve, at the slope at which new knowledge is created. How the curve has risen in the last 20, 30 or 40 years, not only in the number of new findings, but also in the speed of change. Here we have scientific discoveries and developments. This goes up to 2012 and 2013, so the slope is very steep. So today we are facing challenges which might be threats or opportunities for companies, for people, for governments. Today we talk about mega trends, which as a result of the technology became massive at a speed unthought of in the past. This mega trend of changes in purchasing power, countries which used to be leaders in the past are not leaders any longer. Demographic changes, climate changes, increasing urbanization. It is said by 2030, 70% of the world population will live in cities. This does not mean that there will be no relationship to the rural population, the growth of technology, or this idea of scarcity of resources, which may be turned into surplus or abundance of resources through the use of technology. There are many universities in the U.S. that are focusing on this, but I'd like to ask you this question. If you were a Martian, and you were told that the worst problem of mankind is that there is not enough water on the Earth, and you look at the Earth, what would you say? That human beings from the Earth are silly, because over 80% of the planet is covered by water. So, is water a scarce resource, or is it that we haven't developed the technologies that are available nowadays to turn that water into, that ocean water into drinking water? So it's key. Technology may turn scarce resources into abundant resources. We have just heard Uber. This is an example. The car population is really large, but there are people who cannot travel anywhere because they don't have a car. When you turn or when you change things through technology, when you improve access to the resources, something which is scarce may become abundant.
Another important concept is that competitiveness is not based on natural resources, but based on skills and talents, and mainly based on innovation. IT, the information technology, digitalization has a huge impact. The youngest, maybe you are not aware of this because you were born with this, but we were not born with a mobile phone, with a smartphone. Today, everything we do is impacted by information technology. How we buy, how we sell, how we make a bank transaction, health issues, everything. All these technologies are disruptive. In order to break into economies, require organizations, flexible structures, dynamic structures that bring them into the economies. Unless you recreate the entrepreneurial space, it's very difficult to have disruptive technologies. That's why we are valuing this entrepreneurial effort that is seen as something that we all want, and innovation is the big driver. This is not new. Mankind, human beings, have this skill of creating value. I believe in co-create because I believe in God. But you will all agree that today's world was given to us for us to make it better. But if we couldn't, as human beings, see our intelligence, to will, to want, which is our heart, and to do, those are our hands. Unless we have these three abilities, the world would have never been better, and we would still be sitting on the ground. So creative processes, and you can check this from any angle. There's always a group of people who have this vision, this attitude, not aptitude, that faces uncertainty with creativity and pragmatism. Two core things in farming. Uncertainties are many, but entrepreneurs always face uncertainties, try to reduce the uncertainties and add value. We have different examples. This is the new idol of entrepreneurs, but we have our big entrepreneurs in different areas. Farming is a perfect example of how technology changed the activity. Agriculture is one of the oldest activities. Manual farming, then steam machines, and now we have artificial intelligence, software, information technology, precision agriculture. You know very well what I mean. You know the impact of different technologies on farming. Many companies that are currently top companies did not exist 10 years ago. Uber started 7 years ago, and they've got 15,000 employees after 15 months in Argentina. Many other business models did not exist, such as Uber, because Uber is based on a business model that is picking up, which is called shared economy, which is based on yet another concept that millennials have as a goal, not to have, but to use. So what I need is to use something. That is the Uberization of our economy. I'm just showing something, autonomous cars. Before checking this slide, which companies are working on autonomous cars? You would have said Google, Toyota, but check the number of new startups that are working on this new concept, autonomy. It was unthinkable a few years ago, but these companies are adding value in different sectors, and this, of course, will have an impact on many activities. This is very interesting to understand which will be the 8 emerging technologies that will impact everything in our lives in the next 10 years, I think, but probably in 10 years we will have others. Remember this and be alert, because all these technologies will foster more profitability and better development for your companies. This is a cycle that relates to cybersecurity, the Internet of Things, big data. We don't have an excuse today. Be alert, be open to new things, find ways to be properly informed in those things that you're interested in, not only in your industry but in other industries. We will live convergence times. Look at Facebook long-term roadmap. Facebook started to be a network to post photographs. Now it is trying to connect the world with the world in the next decade. Artificial intelligence, conversion times. The world is going to convergence, and conversion is this, what we call the exponential technologies. When you intersect them with the challenges of the future, mobility, health, inclusive finances, you create what we call transdisciplinary combinations that create, for instance, robotic plus digital manufacturing plus health plus biotechnology. You print organs. So you are farmers. Be alert, because this is convergence, and conversion relates not only to technologies but to a different world where farming, manufacturing, cities and rural areas, the academia and the companies, public and private, come together. We face huge challenges. Population will increase, urbanization will be an issue, resources, how much are we going to need to feed the world? Climate change, so we face huge challenges. And Argentina, I call it a bipolar Argentina, because you see huge advancements, huge innovation, but still people living under the line of poverty. And that's the challenge. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Einstein said so. So I suggest, I invite you to think about your issues as an entrepreneur. It is a person who looks at uncertainties, does not freeze and think about making a difference, create risks and faces risk with networks, with training, and transforms uncertainty in risk. And then, after a lot of efforts, I transform risk into values. And that is the entrepreneurial process. What is entrepreneur? It creates something where there wasn't anything. Maybe he hasn't his own project, but he's creating a lot of value in these trust networks. Matthias did not create Uber, but he's transforming reality by introducing these technologies that will improve people's lives. That is entrepreneur. The entrepreneur, the person, can be working in an NGO, at the church, a football club, or in a big corporation, or you can have your own project. To be an entrepreneur means to be alert to opportunities, means to look for them with discipline, to focus on something, and create an environment where everybody feels an entrepreneur. And that is how you create an entrepreneurial organization. Where do we innovate? In different geographies with non-traditional partners. We introduce technologies, trends, always based on people. And just to finish, let me give you some announcements that I share with a colleague in Silicon Valley. He says, this is the best time for entrepreneurial innovators. For government officers, they have a huge challenge because innovations go faster than regulations. So the challenge is to protect public goods while you introduce technologies to empower people. And of course, successful companies' executives face a very difficult time because they have to rethink, retransform themselves to continue being leaders. In Latin America, there's a great study by Ignacio Peña. They are working on innovation and well, just to close, I'm going to show this very quickly. 20 years ago, there wasn't in Argentina an entrepreneurial system, and there was no political decision to foster entrepreneurial activities. I'm working with a colleague these activities in Argentina for different reasons, macroeconomic reasons. Many could not move forward, but today is a different time. Innovation entrepreneurs are part of public agenda. The federal, provincial, and municipal governments are fostering policies, and it's a historical time. We should not be thinking about the government as the big benefactor. We need an activity that is socially responsible, innovative, to drive the change our country needs. The challenge is that we are today building the future. Open your mind, because a mind that opens to a new idea never closes. Difficult is a little bit more work, but never impossible. And remember that when the wind blows, some run to hide, and some others build windmills. So, going back to social innovation, I believe it's very important that you think social innovation is a social asset, because that will make us all socially more worthwhile. Thank you. Thank you, Silvia Torres Carbonel. And now we have the questions and answers session. Very interesting, the three presentations, and as Silvia said, the sequence has been very good. Juan Manuel talked about his personal experience from Trenquelauquen, a mid-sized city in one province, innovating, doing teamwork. I continue with Silvia. I was thinking, you were saying the huge number of companies that are working on autonomy. A characteristic of our paradigm is that cycles are shorter and shorter. Innovating is a requirement for everyone, and it ends up being expensive. So can you tell us what you're seeing about this entrepreneurship platform and companies? Good question. For many years, I've been working on this for many years, big companies were not into this. They felt they were not part of this process. They had their own innovation processes, many times in-house processes with their ID departments. But in the past 3, 4, 5 years, big corporations, because they are aware that they need to change, because technology allows us to change. Companies used to have more capital, and that allowed them to change, but currently knowledge is available for anyone, so big corporations are becoming or are trying to get into entrepreneurship, and they are trying to be part of our system, trying to find this gene, this innovative entrepreneurial gene. Many times they do different programs. They are creating corporate funds for venture capitals to invest in startups. In other cases, they are trying to find strategic alliances. And I believe an institution like mine or the state has to build this meeting space to protect the weakest link, because many times the entrepreneur is more exposed to these big companies. But this is a convergent process.
Matthias, going along these lines of the tsunami, of the changing paradigm, which is important for everybody, and the administration is taking this into account. So along these lines, we might say that the regulatory framework lags behind the technological changes, everything related to how to regulate the collaborative economy, and this is what Uber, similar companies are doing. What models would you recommend to the local governments, because we always think about large cities, but this might be an excellent solution to connect suburban areas, very suburban areas, and I know Hubert has many examples of this. What example could you suggest we should pay attention to so as to make the most out of it? First of all, I'd like to tell you that we are present in over 630 cities with 120 different regulatory framework. And this means that innovation always needs a framework, a regulatory framework. And the regulatory framework has to take into account the local features. In many cases, innovation adjusted to the specific characteristics of each city. We have learned a lot in the last few years. We know there is not a single model to complement our services with public transportation. It's not just one way of sharing trips, of carpooling. But we work on the basis of consensus building to develop the regulatory framework for each city. But I agree there is a big challenge on related to how we build that consensus without blocking innovation, but by giving it the right room to grow. There are important examples. Today in Mexico City, there are over 300,000 Uber drivers. It's the second largest city regarding the number of trips in Sao Paulo, while Brazil as a country has about 500,000 Uber drivers, and each of the 40-something cities has different features. Sao Paulo is a big city. I mentioned Canada. The city in Canada is a small town where we developed a tailor-made solution, so to say. So it's important to develop our systems in smaller cities that need to be connected to a large city. For example, New Jersey, which is a sleeping city. People live there but work in New York, so people move every day to New York. Would use their car to go to the train station every day, would take a train to go to New York. The car was parked there for 9 or 10 hours, and then they drove back home. So the municipality had to build more parking spaces for people who would drive to the train station with their own car. So we found a win-win solution. We would promote our trips to and from the train station. This was an incentive for people to change their habits. And this involved lower costs, not to be in the traffic, not to have to find a parking space. And this kind of collaboration between administrations and companies are successful. There are several examples, but you have to find a different solution for each case. Juan Manuel and myself have worked together in the past while he was wearing one of his different hats. One of them is Agro Empende, a contest which we have already held in Catamarca, and one says a contest of business plans in the agricultural arena, trying to expand freedom so that everybody who wanted to become an entrepreneur could become one, so that moving to the big city, was not a must for those who wanted to become entrepreneurs. So, Juan Manuel, what should we do at the local level and the municipal level to support entrepreneurs so that they may develop their ideas? Well, it's really nice to work with the Ministry of Agri-Industry and the Ministry of Production to help young people stay in the rural areas so that they don't have to move to the large cities to earn a living. We were talking about this on our way to Rosario. We need to create ecosystems where the public sector may provide tools, where the private sector will be involved, where the different layers of the public administration may be involved. But we also need to include corporations and companies. We need to create a network so that all of the stakeholders start planning and thinking together. This is a tough job. It's not easy. I know you have worked a lot in these 2 years. You have visited many towns and cities, and it's hard to get people to get connected. But we must share examples with them. We need to create new role models, new success stories. We have to share them so that we can show to the local governments and to society as a whole that things can be done, that local development can be achieved through entrepreneurial activities. I have visited provinces such as Catamarca and Formosa, and it's really sad to see that most of the people work for the public administration, and the private initiative is not an option. It's not considered by the youth. So we need to think how we get involved, how we get them involved, how we give them tools to do that, because they receive no assistance. They are on their own at home. There is nobody there to help them. So we need to show them, by way of example, that things can be done. This will take time, but we have to start doing it. Otherwise, we won't be able to improve our productivity the way we wanted, to be able to feed 600 million people and to become the grain suppliers of the world. So we need to take technologies to the whole country, and I believe entrepreneurial activity and technology are the best tool to achieve this. Well, your presentations have been very interesting. Thank you very much. Squeeze them out of the knowledge when we leave this room, but we have to end this session right